This is Seeking Catharsis. Today I want to talk about why I decided to end our couples therapy. I think I've mentioned in past episodes that couples therapy is generally not recommended when there is abuse present. Now, I've been aware that there's abuse present for quite some time, but I also knew that I had to deal with my husband on a regular basis, and I needed some outlet or some third party to be a party to what was happening in our lives, just so I could be validated and so that we could also have some guidance on how to cope through this difficult time. We have been in therapy since, I want to say for perhaps the last 5 months, 4 or 5 months. And before that, we were in discernment therapy, which is the therapy a couple would go to decide whether or not they'd like to pursue divorce or work on the marriage, or through therapy, or leave things as is. And after 3 sessions, I was ready to walk away from the marriage, as I have been, but my spouse claimed that he wanted to work on things and start therapy, which, looking back, are just words. They're just ways to keep me hooked in. He didn't really care to do any of the work. He hasn't really done any work. But he definitely didn't want to be in a situation where I was leaving the situation before he was ready for me to be gone. So fast forward, we had several sessions, and since I've been back to this, in the city where we had initially lived before I self-isolated and moved away for a year, I've been seeing him on a weekly basis. We were working towards reconciliation. We were in therapy. And I was noticing that when we would spend time together, he was not very kind to me. He was short, a little disagreeable, low energy. It just felt like a lot to try to have basic conversation with him. And then I also noticed that the most that we would spend together was no more than 2 hours or so. So he would spend time with me as if it were some type of chore to him and not something he really looked forward to. This entire time since I've been back, we had not spent any real quality time together. No overnights, again, no time more than 2 hours, mainly meals that were broken up with some silence on the way to the meal, and then post-meal, and followed by an apology by him for his moodiness. So it was becoming a pattern where he would invite me out to drinks or to dinner, be in a sour mood, and then at the end of the date or the following day would send a text apologizing for his sour mood, and followed by my, "Oh, it's okay, thank you for the apology," but it would be a cycle. So at some point I mentioned this in therapy, when our therapist had asked us, how things were going with spending time together and on our reconciliation. And I was very honest with her and said, he doesn't really take the time to plan things out with me, or, I've been back here working, and I have a co-working space in my building, and he hasn't been here once in over a month to spend any time here with me, just to work, just as a co-worker / husband, as someone who could easily be in the same space with me, with no pressure, but to at least show some interest in being around me. And he hasn't done that. So I was just seeing little things like that, and I mentioned that. And so the therapist suggested that we set aside a certain amount of time per week for date nights and time to work on the relationship and be with each other. And she asked my husband how much time he could give me to devote to the relationship, and he said he could do up to 3 days. 3 days, and he gave the days that worked for him, and our homework was for us to date each other and to use one of those dates to talk about our relationship and how things are going. And that homework didn't go well. It was after our third session together with this new therapist that we had that assignment, and the date night came, and I hadn't heard from him. I had a relative over that was leaving, and I just texted him to just see if we were still on for our date, for which we had no time set, no place set, because it wasn't something that he had even, I think, remembered. And I, simply said, "Are we still on?" And I called him, and he was very short. He was like, "Well, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go?" Kind of putting it on me like I was interrupting something. And I suggested a place, and when I got there, there was another couple there that we knew, and it turned into a double date, which was great because he was actually quite on for that and very polite, and he played the role of doting husband quite well. And so it was nice to kind of recall how it felt before he became abusive to me. And we were out with other people back in the day where we could converse and laugh, and things seemed okay. But after that date, I took an Uber home, and the following day he was very grouchy. He called me to complain about some things at work and how he thought I wasn't stepping up and wasn't playing my role, and it was as if he were trying to create some type of distance or conflict between us on the same day when we were supposed to spend our second date together. And I kind of saw it coming. There's like a pattern that I've noticed of when you have a good night or a good day, the next day is followed by absenteeism or shortness or grouchiness. It's not consistently just on the up and up. It's just that negative up and down, back and forth, kind of intermittent reinforcement where you're not quite sure what you're going to get. And so your system is, you're anxious all the time about your interaction with the person. So, and I guess, true to form to that cycle, he was grouchy and short, and he was telling me how I wasn't working and doing as much as I should be as he was driving to a non-work meeting and taking the whole day off for himself, as if to deflect or project on me what he was actually doing while I was actually working the entire day. And then he didn't follow up on our date. The day before, I had reminded him, and I said, I'm going to let him remember that we have this date. And he didn't. And I knew that was going to happen. I knew that he was trying to set up an argument. He was trying to set up some type of conflict. And I just didn't bite. I just, was like, "I'm sorry you feel that way. I'll try to see what I can do better." I just kind of played into it because I knew what he was trying to do was to make me defensive about my work, which I am very serious about my work and the quality of my work. And I'm a consummate professional in our business. So I didn't appreciate what he was saying, and I knew that he knew that it wasn't true, and I think he wanted me to fight with him because that gives him some type of power, and I didn't do that. And then he didn't follow up about our date night that we had just set on that Monday. It was now just Wednesday. And he pocket dialed me, and he was out with someone else later that day with another woman, laughing, very, very friendly sounding. And so funny, I seem to not remember the way his laugh sounds with me one-on-one, but when he's with other people, he laughs a lot. And it's sickening, because it's fake, this false sense of I'm lighthearted, I'm happy, I'm easygoing, things are funny, I have this hearty laugh, and meanwhile it's just forced. So I wonder if he pocket dialed me on purpose. I'm not sure, but he was definitely out with another woman, and I left it alone and kind of stayed in and focused on myself, and that was the date night. That was the last day of the week that we were supposed to hang out for the date nights that we had preset. And I left it alone and was good kind of being with myself, because I really do enjoy my own company, and I'm a bit of a loner and a workaholic. So I just focused inward. And then Saturday came, which is not one of the days that he had offered, which is, I guess, a prime time for him to date. I was noticing since this happened that Saturday seemed to be the day that he is doing his other relationship dating and socializing. And he calls me, or he texts me. He sends me a text message asking if I want to grab drinks later. And for a second, I was like, oh, wow, like he's asking me out on a date and he's initiating it, and I didn't have to remind him. And maybe he remembered that he forgot about our date night, and this is promising. So, I said, yeah, I'd be delighted. And then he gave me what time, because I didn't have any plans. I'm someone who I can stay indoors for the weekend and be perfectly okay. I'm not much of a person. I don't go out too often, especially after this happened. I'm still in a healing mode where I'm recovering with PTSD. So there's so many triggers, and I self-isolate because it's just easier for me to be in a controlled environment where I don't have to be reminded of all the things that are wrong in my life, which can happen sometimes when you're surrounded by people socializing and being seemingly carefree. So I was kind of excited and felt good about the outreach, and he proposed a time, and I was ready for that. And of course, he was an hour and a half late, which he tends to do a lot. He tends to be very late and kind of inconsiderate of time and deadlines that he sets himself. But, I generally let him pick the time because he's the one that's consistently late or running behind, and he was still late. And when he picked me up, he was in a bad mood. He smelled like he had been drinking, and he did drive to a parking lot about 5 minutes away from where my home is. And he didn't, we didn't really have, he had asked me if there was a place I had in mind. And I said, no, we can figure it out later. And typically when someone invites you out to drinks or dinner, they may have something in mind. So he seemed a little annoyed that I didn't have a place in mind, but I didn't actually invite him out. I was minding my own business and enjoying myself by myself. And he interrupted that and then seemed to be annoyed with the fact that I wasn't prepared for his impromptu date. So we park and we walk in silence. I'm trying to make conversation, asking him about his day, and he runs through all the things he did. And it seems like he's spent a lot of time with everybody. He looked at a new apartment and all of that stuff. And it just seemed like he was having a full weekend. And I was happy that he was socializing and stuff. But he was very, very not friendly with me. and we pulled up alongside a restaurant, and